All right, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangouts. My name is John Mueller. I'm a Webmaster Trends Analyst here at Google in Switzerland. And part of what we do is talk with webmasters and publishers like the ones here in the Hangouts. As always, if there are any of you who are kind of new to these Hangouts who would like to start off and ask a first question, feel free to jump on in right now.
Hi, John. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I already posted on the thread. Our website corendon.nl has been having some ranking issues since the 28th of October. And we've seen that in google.nl, it's been showing the cache version of our Belgian website. That's the only thing that we've seen right now that might have caused some issues. Can you maybe tell me something about it, or maybe do you see something?
I'd have to check when I have a bit more time. Doing these live is always tricky.
Mm-hmm.
What I would do is maybe post in the Webmaster Help Forum so that we have one place where you have your information, and send me a link to your thread so that I can take a look there to see what's happening.
Okay.
Usually, if there are different country versions that are kind of being folded together, where if you look at the cache version, you see the wrong country version.
Yeah.
From our point of view, what's happening is we think these pages are either identical or so similar that we can fold them together. So that's something where I don't know if the language is the same, if they're both in Dutch and they're both essentially really the same content, then that might be something that could lead to a situation like this. So anytime you have country-specific websites, I'd really make sure that at least to some extent you do have unique content per country on those pages.
Okay, so hreflang should not be enough according to your...
hreflang is a really strong signal for us, but if we see even stronger that this is essentially the same website, then we think it makes more sense for the users, that we fold them together so that you have one stronger website rather than two websites that are essentially identical, that aren't as strong individually.
Okay, and then I have a last question. Our homepage is not ranking anymore for our brand.
Okay.
And could also that be an issue regarding the languages, because we don't have any content on our homepage? So if you search for our brand name, the site doesn't rank anymore. And the weird thing is, our Belgium in google.be, the brand name still shows up, but our Belgian website has more link value. So in that way, for us it's kind of weird why the Belgian website is still appearing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to take a look. So if you have a thread in the forum, and
I'll post it. We'll do it.
Send me there. Yeah, that would be great.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
I'll have one to join if you allow me.
All right, go for it.
Basically, it's just a confirmation, so kind of short answer, yes or no. As far as I understood, the metrics from social media are not taken directly into consideration in algorithms. So Twitter links, Facebook shares, likes, and things like that. Of course, they have an indirect value because people may see it and visit your site and then give you links, but directly, they are not in algorithm, right? They are no follower, they are not an algorithm, so...
That's correct, yeah.
No need to try to get Facebook links or something like that.
No,
I mean, just wait for them to come naturally. And
yeah, to some extent, we don't even have access to this data, so we can't really take it completely into account. And like you mentioned, these pretty much always have a no follow attached anyway, so that we can't pass any signals through those links.
John, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Actually, John, recently Google removed a site link option from Webmaster Search Console. Sorry. Okay. So the thing is that if for any brand name query, some junk kind of pages are coming up, like cancel your e-ticket or print your e-ticket. And now even we as a webmaster don't have any option to degrade those site links in brand name queries. So what options now we have? How to just promote at least our main pages for brand name queries? Because Google has not even given any kind of article about what type of links will be appearing in site links.
Yeah. So I guess as a bit of a background with the whole site links tool that we had there, this is something that we've been experimenting with over the last couple of years. And essentially, site links use normal ranking. So there's nothing special around the site links there. And also the effect of this tool has been dialed down to almost nothing in the last, I don't know, half year or so. So that's something where if you've been using this tool to kind of maintain your site links, then probably we haven't been taking the input from your submissions there into account, and we've been using our algorithms anyway. So nothing really changed there other than that we're not providing you a tool that doesn't really change anything in the search results.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess that's a bit of a background there. But in general, anything that you can do to make it easier for us to recognize your site structure, which means like a clean navigation, easy links within your website, anything that you can do in that regard, that's something that we'll use for site links as well. And if there are really pages that you don't want to have shown at all in search, then like any other page that you don't want to have shown in search, you can choose to remove that and use a no index, for example, on those pages. Obviously, that's a really strong hammer because then it doesn't show up at all in the search results. But it's essentially a matter of us trying to rank what we find from your website so that users can dig in and go to the appropriate place within your website as quickly as possible.
Okay. Actually, the thing was that print etiquette or this kind of e-commerce websites cannot use no index tag on those pages. But as you said, that site navigation or interlinking is the main important thing for this. So we'll be focusing on that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you.
John, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So I've noticed since mid-October our .co.uk domain starting to rank, and we have our primary domain as a .com domain, and the .co.uk has been redirecting to the .com for the last 10 years. It's very unusual, and it's about 10% of our traffic now coming through the .co.uk. It appears like all of the redirects are set up correctly. We haven't changed anything, and I'm wondering whether this is something on your side or if it's something on my side that I need to fix.
Hard to say without looking at the specific URLs. So if you can send me the URLs, and I'd love to take a look. In general, when it comes to canonicalization, we take into account a number of different factors, including redirects, but also including things like internal links, sitemaps, external links as well. All of this kind of comes together, and we try to figure out which is the appropriate URL to show. And even in cases where there's a redirect from one URL to another, we might sometimes choose the redirect source rather than the redirect target. But it seems a bit weird that we would switch this after so many years. So I'd love to take a look just to double check that we're doing the right thing there. From a ranking point of view, essentially nothing should be changing for your website. We're just showing one URL or the other URL. But sometimes you have a preference and say, I really want this URL to be shown. And ideally, we'd be able to respect that preference.
Cool. I'll send a message. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. OK, let me go through some of the questions that were submitted here. And as always, if you have any questions in between, feel free to jump on in, and we can take a look at those. I think for some of the future Hangouts, I'm going to try some other things as well, but let me just stick to the questions for the moment. If my site regained rich snippets review stars back, it lost them after a while, does that mean from the quality algorithms, all the algorithms think that this site is awesome? Or can it still be that the site is hit by Panda or other quality algorithms despite the fact that it has regained rich snippets? Yes, it doesn't really mean that your website can't be affected by any of our other algorithms. Essentially, for rich snippets, we do take into account the quality of the website to some extent, but we also take into account whether or not these snippets are set up correctly, if they're complying with our policies, all of that. So that's something where just because we're showing rich snippets doesn't mean that we think this website is above everything else and fantastic and perfect. There can still be parts of the website where our algorithms or some of our algorithms are thinking, this is maybe not so perfect. So it sounds like you're on the right track, but I wouldn't lay back and say, oh, I don't have to do anything anymore with my website. It's perfect the way it is. I'd continue working on this. This is something that, in general, all websites are kind of dynamic and they keep living, so you can't just stop working on it. Does the question, would you trust the information presented in this article from Amit's 23 questions mean that you check the trustworthiness of each page separately and directly, or is it more in a way that if users trust a page, they might want to engage with the site in the future and recommend it to the others? Yes, it's more like the second part, in the sense that this is more of an indirect effect. Obviously, there's no practical way for us to check every web page individually. I recently, for a presentation we're doing for school kids, tried to figure out like how many web pages there are on the web, and taking the number that we've published, which I think is 130 trillion web pages, and if you were to print all of those out, you would have over, 33 piles of paper that go from the Earth to the moon. So this is really something where there's absolutely no practical way for anyone to review the trustworthiness, or even just to read or scan the headlines of every web page out there. So that's, from a practical point of view, that's kind of impossible. Using the site search, we recently found out that both our desktop and our mobile URLs are indexed in search results, despite all tags working nicely, mobile, alternate, and canonical. Is there any reason this might be? Is this an issue? So this is something that we occasionally see, especially if you have separate mobile URLs. But for the most part, that doesn't indicate that there's any problem with the configuration that you have there. So what might be happening is that we recognize that you have separate mobile URLs, and we recognize that on the m.dot subdomain, for example, if you're using that, you have these pages indexed. But if you look at the cache page, then chances are you'll see the URL and the contents of the canonical page that we actually picked. So that's a kind of a rough and dirty, quick way to double check what we're actually indexing compared to the URLs that we're showing you in the search results. Because what we're trying to do there is probably just trying to give you the information that you're looking for. Isn't that you're saying, I really want URLs from this website, and we say, oh, well, we don't really have them indexed here, but we know that this is connected to the other one. Therefore, we'll show that to you so that you're happy and you find kind of what you're looking for. Could you please elaborate on two things? Site quality algorithms look at the content on the pages and how users like my website. And second one, links from other sites have nothing to do with how the site quality algorithms perceive my site. Is this correct? I think for the most part, those two are correct, in the sense that we try to separate our algorithms as much as possible so that we can focus on individual aspects, rather than having algorithms like take into account a bit of this, a bit of that, and another algorithm takes into account the same two items and mixes them up slightly differently. So ideally, we try to keep our algorithms a bit distinct. So just because you have maybe links from weird websites doesn't necessarily mean that the quality of your website is in any way different because of those links. We want to disallow crawling of parts of our website by robots. To achieve that, we use this entry in the robots text file, user agent asterisk, disallow /folder x. Can this entry cause any kind of issues with advertising systems like AdSense, for example, disabling to display ads on /folder x? Should we specify user agent, which we want to disallow for crawling, or rather specify an ad system user agent, which we are supposed to allow? So I guess first off, I don't know specifically how the AdSense side handles this, so I can't confirm or deny how the AdSense crawler would look at that. I believe we have this documented in our Help Center, though. As far as I know, the AdSense crawler doesn't look at the generic restricts, but rather is just looking for its unique ones. In general, though, how it works is that user agents try to follow the most specific directives that you have there. So if you have one block for user agent asterisk and one block for user agent, I don't know, the AdSense bot, then the AdSense bot, when it looks at your robots text file, would only take into account the most specific section. So it would only take into account that user agent section that you have specifically defined for it. And all other bots would defer to the most generic one because that's the only one that's specific enough for them. And this is something that you can use for the different kinds of Google bots, for web search if you want. If you have a section for Google News and you have a section for normal web, then that's something you can kind of control that as well. And the same thing also happens on a directive level, in that if you have a specific URL, then we will look at your robots text file and find the most specific directive that applies to that URL. So if you have, for example, disallow folder x, and you have allow folder x / subfolder 2, and a URL within subfolder 2 comes up, then the most specific one would be that second directive, and we would follow that one. This can be a bit tricky, I guess, in the beginning. What I would recommend doing there is using the robots text testing tool in Search Console, which does this more or less for you and tells you, yes, this is OK, this can be crawled, or no, this would be blocked by crawling. Similarly, you can just edit the robots text file on top and see how things change. We have very comprehensive documentation for robots text. So if you want to do something more specific, kind of special with your robots text file, then I would take a look at that and see how you get along there. You use user metrics like short clicks and pogo sticking only for testing algorithms and not for adjusting rankings or quality of specific pages or websites for queries. Am I correct? Yes, you are correct. So this is something that we tend to use when evaluating different algorithms to figure out which algorithms are working well, which algorithms are not working well, and especially to evaluate algorithmic ideas, where some engineer might come up and say, oh, I think this is a really great idea for an algorithm, and then we test it like this to see how users actually respond to it. Essentially, what we're doing here is kind of A/B testing our different setups and seeing which one performs best. Obviously, this is something that can be kind of tricky in the sense that sometimes users click on things, but actually they don't get an answer on those pages obviously right away. Oh, let me just mute you. Feel free to unmute if there's something in between that you want to add. All right. I think this other one is the Dutch and Belgium website. Let me just copy that onto the side so that I don't lose that in case I don't find your thread. All right. I'd like to attend in person. My question is, what's the reason explanation for different totals in search analytics? Or is it just a bug? Which total is direct? I'd have to take a look at the screenshot that's linked there. I suspect what you're looking at. Let me just see. It looks like it's loading. Looks like there are a bunch of replies on the thread already. So maybe you already have this figured out. Okay, yeah. So what you're looking at there is essentially the total on top in Search Console, where it says, I don't know, total so many impressions or so many clicks. And then if you add up the individual lines, then it gives you a different number, which is usually less than the total shown on top. This comes from the way that we filter the search queries that we show in Search Console, in the sense that if there are queries that only happen like once or twice or a very small number of times, or that we think might be personal information, then those are queries that we would filter out in Search Console. So what would happen in a case like that is that the total numbers will be the total numbers that we track there. But the individual rows, if you look at those, then some of those will be filtered out, so that if you add up all of those numbers in the rows, they won't necessarily be the same as the total number shown on top. You can kind of resolve this if you want to have cleaner results by looking at the results per URL, so per page, and not per query within Search Analytics. And then the totals should essentially add up, because per page, that's something that obviously you will see as well in your analytics account, and that should kind of work out there. So there's a bit of documentation on this within our Help Center. There's also a lot of documentation on like what is an impression, what is a click, what does a position number mean, how do you count positions within our Help Center, which should have a lot of interesting insight for people who are really digging down into the details of search analytics. Okay, and now there's a really long question with regards to cinema listings. I took this question to the team here that's working on the Showtime's results, and they said they don't really have a perfect answer for you at the moment, but they're working on improving this process in general. I think you're here in the Hangout, right?
Yeah. Hi, John.
Hi.
Basically, it doesn't seem to be much of an issue in the UK. I think where the difficulty is lying is that in the US, there's a couple of aggregators, movietickets.com and Fandango. I'm not entirely sure if Google have a deal with them to provide these feeds. And I don't know if there's an exchange of money between these parties, but certainly in the UK, we provide an API to a company called Webedia. You might have heard of them, and they then send that data to Google. But in the UK, we that seems to be fine. But in the US, it seems to be a bit of a different issue. We're taking on more and more clients in the US, and they're coming up against this problem. And just from a usability perspective for Google users, we certainly think it would be useful for them to be able to direct book via the cinema sites themselves, rather than going through to a third party. It just adds a step in the process. And for our cinema clients as well, it's a great source of revenue for them, because they get the booking fees, and there's added benefits to the user. If they book direct on site, they can sign into the loyalty program and account and accrue points and that kind of thing. So if you get any direction for me at the moment on where to take this next, or how to move this forward.
So one thing you might be able to do is get in touch with the company that's taking your feeds at the moment in the UK, and see if they can also use that for the US. Otherwise, I think at the moment this is something where the team is working on trying to find a better solution there, but we don't have anything to announce just yet.
Is there no way to submit data to you to Google directly?
From what I've seen at the moment, they're just taking a very limited set of kind of feed providers there to make sure that the data quality is high enough and to kind of keep the amount of work that's involved to a minimum. But I can definitely double check with them again to see if they'd be open to a company like you also providing this for other cinemas as well, especially if you're already working with a bunch of cinemas in different countries.
Yeah, that would be really great. Well, I'll just follow up with you in the next Hangout and see how we're going.
I don't know if I'll have something in the next Hangout already, but I'll forward your contact information on as well. I think you posted that there too, so that they can take a look and get in touch if there's something that they can add there.
That's great, John. Thank you.
It's always a bit tricky with these kind of situations because we do try to keep things as easy as possible and make sure that the data quality is as high as possible for feeds, which makes it sometimes a bit trickier for other people to jump in there as well.
Yep, but thanks for your time.
Sure. All right. Another question here. What main things are needed to approve in Google News? Is the domain name or any name? How old should the domain be? What number of articles, etc. I don't really have any insight into the details of like what Google News uses to pick sites. I believe in the Help Center they have some more guidelines on what you need to kind of fulfill for Google News. And there's also a Google News Publisher Forum where there are a bunch of people there that are really active that can help guide you in the right direction there. In general, Google News is something that does want to make sure that they're showing something reasonable in the search results, in the Google News search results. Whereas with web search, we essentially take every website that's out there and try to rank that as appropriate. What's the best practice for dealing with duplicate content on multilingual websites? That's always a bit tricky. I guess with duplicate content, it's always a bit tricky in general. In general, what I'd recommend for multilingual websites is trying to make sure that they're as unique as possible. So maybe first off, if the content is in different languages, then for us, it's not duplicate content. It's really only duplicate content if really the words, the content itself is all the same. So if you're translating something from English into French, then even though what it's talking about might be the same and the phrasing might be the same, the content is different for us. It's a different language. It's different words. We see that as completely different content. Whereas if you have content maybe for the UK and you have the same content for I don't know, Australia maybe, then what might happen there is that this content looks exactly the same because it's English and it's just for different countries. So in cases like that, I'd really try to make sure that if you're targeting individual countries and you want to make sure that your content has the right version shown in individual countries, then of course, first use hreflang markup to tell us about that connection. But then also try to make sure as much as possible that there are unique aspects in there, that you're not just taking one piece of content and duplicating it for a bunch of different countries without actually providing something unique and specific for users in that country. So that's kind of what I would aim for there with regards to multilingual and multi-regional websites. Let's see. Would you recommend migrating to HTTPS and performing a domain migration together at the same time, or would you recommend a more step-by-step approach? I'm working on migrating a website with 6 million URLs and not sure which way is better. So if you have to migrate to a different domain anyway, then I would recommend just making sure that you're migrating to your final structure and going all the way to HTTPS. Each of these migration steps does result in some fluctuations for a short time. Usually, just moving to HTTPS is less of an issue. But if you're going to move to a different domain name anyway, then you might as well do the HTTPS part right at the same time so that you don't have to do that separately. So I think that's kind of what I would recommend there. If you're moving to a new domain, just move to HTTPS right away so that you have all of that together. Another thing to kind of keep in mind here is if you're moving to a new domain and you're changing your site's URL structure, then that's an additional level of complexity for us, because you're not just taking URLs one-to-one and moving them to a new domain name. You're also changing the interlinking of your website, changing maybe the templates of your pages, all of that as well. And that's something that makes it a lot harder for us. So that's something where I'd really try to think about the bigger picture and think about what is the final structure I want my site to be in, so that you can move to that structure right away. And you don't have to kind of pull this into the length. The other thing to think about is when would be a good time. So when do you traditionally not have to worry about search traffic that much? When would it be OK if things in search maybe fluctuated for a couple of weeks until they settle down again? So that's kind of not really mentioned in this question, but that's something I'd try to think about there as well. In Search Analytics, getting so many search queries that are not provided. Why is that? Any solution? Oh, I guess in Google Analytics, not in Search Analytics. So in Google Analytics, by default, uses the refer information that's passed from the website, from search. And by default, we strip the query from there. So there's still maybe some control groups that are seeing the query being passed to analytics. But for the most part, we strip the query there. And Google Analytics shows this as not provided. And from our point of view, that's working as intended. That's the way that it should be. If you need to have more information on the queries that are used to reach your website or that show your website in search, then I'd recommend looking at Search Analytics within Search Console, or kind of connecting your Search Console account with your Google Analytics account so that you have this, I believe they call it the SEO view in Analytics as well, where you also see the search queries. And those search queries are the same that we would show in Search Console as well. My website doesn't appear in the search results. Is this a keyword that Google penalizes my website, or is something else blocked in Google Webmaster Tools? I find this one script blocks on all of my pages. Is that a problem? I don't know. So what I'd recommend doing there is really posting in the Webmaster Help Forum and getting some Webmaster peers to double check what's happening there. And if you're already seeing some things that you suspect might be problematic within Webmaster Tools or Search Console, make sure that you post that as well. If you've received a notification with regards to web spam or anything like that, then make sure that you post that as well. It's always a bit frustrating for the people in the forums if you have information that you're not sharing that they have to figure out themselves. So give them the information that you have or that you've run across, even if you're not sure if it's completely relevant or not. And usually they'll be able to guide you in a direction that helps to improve your website a little bit. Sometimes they're really weird situations, and those situations are things that the folks in the Webmaster Help Forums have gotten used to as well over the years, and they can escalate those to us so that Googlers can take a look as well to double check that the algorithms are working right, that the webmaster has the information that they need to make a good website. I have a client that uses Demandware in order to sell on his own shop. Now this causes duplicate content, the same content under different URLs. Besides blocking crawling and indexation via robots text, what would you recommend? So I don't really know what Demandware is. I'm going to assume this is a kind of an affiliate setup, maybe, where someone else is selling the same content as well. Or maybe this is a kind of shop setup. I don't know. But in general, when it comes to duplicate content, where you have the same content under different URLs, our main recommendation is to try to solve that within your website directly, for example, by using a rel canonical on those pages, so that you tell us which of these pages you think belong together, and then we can fold them together. Blocking crawling by robots text is usually not recommended unless you really have the situation where crawling your content itself causes so many problems that you need to block that. But just for normal duplicate content, that's not something that you'd need to do. The thing that would happen with the robots text file if you use that to block crawling is that we would not be able to recognize that this is duplicate content. And if anyone were to link to one of those URLs that you have blocked, which could also be within your website, then we wouldn't know what to do with that, and we wouldn't be able to forward this this context of that link. Whereas if you use a rel canonical on those pages, then we would know, oh, you mean this link that's going to this page is actually meant to go to this page here, so we can forward that and make that final destination page a little bit stronger so that it shows a bit more visibly in search as well.
I would have a follow-up question here.
Sure.
So, for example, on a site built on the WordPress CMS, there will be a lot of duplicate content. You have an article itself, you have a category page, you have a main page, the archive page, the tag page, author page, and basically an article will appear in a lot of places, at least 5 or 6. I understand that it's not good to use robots.txt to block, for example, the monthly archive, yearly archive. So what would you do about that? Not do anything and just let Google handle it, or try to use a no index, but where to use the no index? How would you handle that?
So I guess, first of all, I would try to make sure that your article page really has the most comprehensive view of this content, which could be that you use the snippets on the category pages, the author pages, and the full article on the article page. It could also be that maybe you have a lot of really high-quality comments on that article page that you don't have on those other pages. But really, I try to at first make sure that the article page itself is the definitive source of information for that topic. And past that, I think using a no index on some of those types of pages is perfectly fine. That's something that helps us to understand, well, there's a link to these articles there, but we shouldn't be indexing this particular page. Which one you choose is kind of up to you, in the sense that you can think about which one of these pages is one that you do want to have indexed, and which types of these pages do you not want to have indexed. For example, if authors are really proud of the stuff that they're writing on your website and they want to have the kind of their author profile page, then maybe you would leave that. Whereas if you just have one author and it's just your company name as the author, then maybe you don't need those author pages indexed at all. So it really kind of depends on your website what you choose to do there. In general, if you make sure that the article page itself is the best source of information for that article, then it's less of a problem, because then we can recognize that this is the page that should be ranking for queries about this topic. And even if we index other pages, then that's not going to really cause any issues there.
So not recommended to have a full article on the main page, for example, or on the category pages. Better just use a snippet and have a full article only on the article page.
Yeah, either use a snippet, or if you're sure that you have a lot of really high quality comments, then that's something that would also be on the article page. But for a lot of sites, they don't have a lot of comments. And if you take the full content and you put it on all of these different types of pages, then it's hard for us to recognize which of these types of pages is the right one.
Previously advice from you here, I have blocked the comments from displaying all of them. Because you said they may dilute the quality of article itself since they are considered in the page. So I'm just picking the top 4 comments in my vision and I highlight those in the main article. And the other ones are like no index.
Yeah, I mean, this is it really depends on your website. And some websites have a lot of really high quality comments and or have a handful of high quality comments. And I think that's something that's useful to highlight because it shows other people that there's a community here. There are really smart people that are reading this and they're saying this or that about this topic. But sometimes you have just random people commenting and they're not really providing a lot of value, and maybe that's something that you want to kind of suppress from search. But that's really something that all depends on you and your website. And unfortunately, there is not one size fits all, that all websites have to look exactly the same and do exactly the same thing. That lets you use your creativity to find the right approach for your specific content.
And the really last one for today, also about WordPress, about the boilerplate content on WordPress. So basically the theme of the site. Do you really need an original one, or you can just use a normal one or use stock images which are free to use and which other sites use, and just rely on original content as an original article? Or it is better if the theme is unique, if images are unique, or something like that? What is enough if you have a 2,000 words article, but you have 3 images which are stock images and which are on a bunch of other sites, and you use the default theme?
So I guess for search, it doesn't matter so much, but users will want to probably see that you're putting time and effort into your website.
Not so much means not at all, or not so much?
I don't think we would take that into account directly at all. So I can't imagine that we have an algorithm or a classifier that says, oh, this is a generic template, therefore, I don't know, -5% or something like that. I can't imagine that we would have something like that. But there are a lot of indirect effects there, in that if users go to your website and it looks like a generic WordPress or generic Blogger blog, then maybe they won't assume that this is actually a really high-quality professional website. So that's something where if you look at your website overall, then this comes into play as well with regards to how users respond to your website. And that indirectly is something that we might be able to pick up, where if users recommend your website more, then that's something we might be able to notice. But it's not the case that from search itself, we would have an algorithm that says, oh, they just use a generic template, therefore it's a bad website. That I don't think that would make sense.
So no risk of duplicate content for boilerplate with other sites using same boilerplate? No,
I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, thank you a lot, and I will shut up for the rest of
No problem. It's good to have questions.
John, can I have a question, please, about duplicate content also?
Sure, go for it.
So we are handling a bunch of video sites, funny video sites, and we have in the template pages, like in the index page, we are showing all the new content that is added, and we have also top rated pages, most commented pages, most viewed pages. We're not really sure what to do with them. Should we let them index, or maybe no index follow them? It's very near to the duplicate content, so we are not really sure what to do with them.
Yeah, I would look at this as well from a point of view of a user. Like, if you had this page in the search results, what kind of queries would this be the perfect page for? And instead of like thinking about the type of queries, like if you take the title and you search for that in quotes, this would be the right page. But like what kind of generic query would be the right query for these specific pages? That might be something like, I don't know, best cat videos, and then you have this one page where you have the best cat videos, for example. That might be a good match. But if you just have like random keywords and you say these are the top voted videos on this set of random keywords, then probably that's not really such a compelling page to have in the search results like that. So that's kind of the level I would take a look at there, is taking that page and thinking about what kind of queries would this be the perfect page for that wouldn't be within the rest of my website, that wouldn't be within the rest of the web.
I understand. Do you also think that implementing AMP will help in the future for video websites? Because I know that AMP is not really helping in video websites.
So with regards to ranking itself, I believe AMP is not a ranking factor, and I'm not aware of any kind of efforts to make that a ranking factor itself. So if you mean like help with regards to better ranking in search, then probably that's not going to happen. However, AMP pages are extremely fast. And if you have a complex website at the moment that takes a long time to load in a browser, and an AMP version of that page is a lot faster, then that might be an option where you say, well, on mobile specifically, people want an answer as quickly as possible. They want to get to my content as quickly as possible. And if I can provide a way for them to get there as quickly as possible, then that's something where you have users that are probably going to stick around a bit longer on your website, maybe click to other pages as well.
Okay, thank you very much, John.
Hi, John.
All right. Hi.
Hi. Quick 2 questions, John. So this app industrial, which now has moved to web, and do we need to work anything on the desktop as well? So is there going to be any algorithm change for that?
The plan is specific to mobile. So at the moment, we don't have any plans for desktop. I don't know what the developments will be there.
Okay, cool. And second question is like on the widgets algorithm. So how Google reads if we have widgets that links to subdomains, though they are editorially controlled? Do Google read it as a value link, or still it looks like a promotional link?
So this is a widget that points to subdomains within your website?
Yes.
Okay, so if this is all within your website, then usually that's not something I would worry about. Then that's usually something that you're just providing alternate ways of navigating within your website, and that's perfectly fine. On the other hand, if this is one widget that you're providing and you're giving it to, I don't know, thousands of other websites, then just because it links to a subdomain doesn't change the nature of this link essentially being provided by you. So that would be something that we'd recommend using a no follow-on. But again, if this is just within your website, if this is adding value within your website, within the navigation on your website, then that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Also, like there are some products which are available in multiple variants, which I asked you in the earlier Hangouts as well. The same UGC content and critical review can be placed in multiple variants, let's say Apple 16 GB, 32 GB. Right. So because for the user, it's always helpful. Just the variable is that GB is only the difference here. So how Google reads that? Because it's a copy-paste content everywhere.
So if you're using the same review in multiple places, what I would just do there is make sure that you just have it marked up in one place. So if you're using the structured data markup for those reviews, then I would just mark that up on that exact article which the user actually reviewed, rather than marking that up on all of these pages. But having that content on those other pages, I think is generally fine. That's something that adds value for the user when they view those pages. So
right.
that can definitely make sense.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, we have 5 more minutes. I can run through some more of the submitted questions, but if any of you have any more specific questions that you've been waiting to ask, feel free to jump on in.
Can I have another one, please?
Sure.
If you have a responsive template, okay, it's work perfectly fine in desktop and mobile also. It makes sense to put to let the user choose which version they want to look through a link. Like, I don't know, in the footer, see mobile version, see desktop version. Makes sense?
If you can do that, then that seems like something that's useful for users. In practice, especially if you have a responsive website, then that's really hard to do, because the responsive website happens based on the user's device settings and not based on a cookie, for example. So that's really hard to do. The other thing I'd keep in mind there is usually this kind of switch between desktop and mobile version makes sense when the mobile version is kind of bad. So if you have a really good mobile version, then you don't really need that switch, because then users don't look for functionality that's not available on the mobile version. So if you can really make sure that the functionality and the content of the mobile and the desktop versions are the same, which is usually easier to do with responsive web design, then you can probably save yourself the trouble of providing this kind of a switch and the cookie mechanisms and all of that around that. But with regards to search itself, at least from our side, if you have a switch or not is not something that we would look at. That's not something that we would really notice there.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, more questions. What else is on your mind?
If no one else is asking, I will break my promise.
Go for it.
Is there anything as average links quality? So something like, let's say I have 100 backlinks from only great sites, let's say academic sites. Then if I get 100 more links from legit sites, okay sites, but normal sites, not really great sites, basically my link profile will look stronger because now I have 200 links, so it's a cumulative effect. Or there may be something like, yeah, you had only 100, but those 100 were top links, all of them, and now you have 200 from mixed sources, so you may be in a worse position.
I wouldn't say that you would be in a worse position, but we do take into account the quantity and the quality of the links that are pointing to a site. So that's kind of the basis for PageRank from the beginning, in that we don't just count the individual links and say, oh, 200 links is more than 100 links, therefore that's better.
No, I do that, but you keep those 100. So let's say in terms of PageRank, you have 100 PageRank 7 links, then you add 100 PageRank 4 links.
Yeah, so
that way better, because you still have those 100 PR7 and 100 more which are PR4, or would that be 200 links with an average of 5.5, so that may be worse than 100 PR7?
No, almost always it would never be worse with regards to us just saying, well, there's like incremental value or a little bit more value that's being added from those other links. I wouldn't focus on the PageRank of those pages.
No, of course not.
I mean, I think you're just saying this is kind of like as a rough measure and saying these are really good and these are kind of okay but not perfect. That's not something where you would see a dilution there. The one place where I could theoretically think about this potentially affecting those good links as well is if there's really a really strong amount of problematic links in there as well. So for example, if your SEO goes off and buys a ton of really, really bad links, and the web spam team looks at that and says, oh, there are like so many bad links here. We don't really know how to filter out just those bad links. We need to find a pattern that affects the problematic links and for as much as possible doesn't affect the good links, but sometimes it does affect the good links in the sense that sometimes the web spam team, when they look at your site overall, they can't easily recognize these are good, these are bad, and just remove those bad ones there.
No, my question was not about bad links. All of them are good.
If they're all good,
just great or great and good.
Yeah, no problem. I think that's a perfect situation. That's absolutely normal on the web, and that wouldn't negatively affect the rest of your links. So this is something that has come up in the past as well, where people will have a bunch of good links to the website, and then some new website comes up with like really low page rank or that hasn't really been found. It's a good website, but nobody knows about it, and they link to that website, and then the webmaster suddenly thinks, oh, this one link from this unknown website is causing my website to have less value, and that's not the case. So if you have great links and good links, then we don't average that out. We add those together.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. Kind of come to the end from the time point of view. If there's any one last question that anyone wants to ask, now's your chance. Otherwise, I'll set up the next Hangouts, and we can ask those questions then.
I would like to do the last one, please.
All right, go for it.
So how important is to declare in the HTML code the language of the site if you already declared it in Google Search Console, for example?
We don't use that at all. So we use the hreflang links if you have that, if you have different language versions. But the language attribute within the HTML markup is something we don't use at all. We've found that this language markup is something that is almost always wrong. So we tend to ignore that.
Okay, no, I asking this because I see sometimes in search, I see like, I don't know, if I search the Google Italian version, if I search an Italian website, I see like a little link there, translate this website, even if that website is in Italian.
Usually what happens there is that we recognize that there are multiple languages on this web page, and we think it might make sense to show that translate link. But the lang attribute in HTML is something that we ignore completely in search. Things like screen readers, don't ignore that though. So if you want to make sure that your language is picked up properly for screen readers, then I would definitely use that. But for search, we don't use that at all. And again, it's easy for us to recognize that maybe there are different languages on one web page. This is something that happens quite a bit for example, for travel websites. So if you're an Italian website and you talk about vacation homes in Spain or hotels in Spain, then of course the addresses are going to be Spanish looking. So our algorithms will look at that and say, oh, there's a lot of Italian here, but there's also some Spanish here. So we'll assume that this web page has content in multiple languages, and maybe we'll show that translate link in the search results.
Can also that translate link happen because maybe the menu is in English sometimes?
Yes, for example.
The rest of the content is in Italian?
Exactly, yeah,
okay.
that can happen.
Okay, thank you very much, John.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks for all of the questions and discussions. It's been great having you all here again. I'll be setting up the next Hangout probably later today or early next week. So if there's anything else on your mind that I didn't get to in the questions that were submitted or otherwise, you should jump on in there. All right. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a great weekend.
Great weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.